If there's one literary device that annoys me to no end, it's the idea of retcon. To those less informed, retcon is shorthand for retroactive continuity, where a storyline, character or plot device is inserted into a film or TV show that ends up hijacking the narrative and story beats that came before it. There have been many examples of this in modern media, and for me in particular, it just hoists you right out of the story. With that said, this episode will cover a series that has blatant examples of this flaw. Fasten your seatbelts. Hello and welcome to the next installment of GallifreyanAvenger Reviews. In this video we'll be covering the next Marvel series available to Disney+, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, covering the eponymous side characters from the Captain America films. When it was announced that this series was going into production, I was really excited, as I have enjoyed the two leads' performances throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've gone on record many times saying that Captain America the Winter Soldier is my all-time favourite Marvel movie, and it seemed clear that this series would adopt similar elements. Be careful what you wish for. This is going to be more of an autopsy than a review, as there is a lot to unpack here, so strap in. In the interest of providing context, here's a quick recap of the events so far. Skip ahead to this timestamp if you're already caught up. Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes were the two best friends of Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, Sam in the present day and Bucky from the 1940s. Bucky, presumed dead during World War II, ended up getting captured, indoctrinated and experimented on by the fascistic group Hydra. This is when he became known as the Winter Soldier, being used to carry out political assassinations while being forced in and out of cryosleep, which is why he still looks like a man in his 30s rather than 100 chronologically. Sam Wilson, a veteran of the US Air Force Pararescue, became friends with Captain America in the modern era, assisting him with the dismantling of Hydra and the search for the Winter Soldier in the hopes of breaking his conditioning. He became inducted into the Avengers around this time, known as the Falcon. Sam and Bucky soon became fugitives during the events of Captain America Civil War, opposing the Sokovia Accords, legislation ratified to regulate superhero and vigilante activity, and Bucky is framed and manipulated by Baron Zemo, who orchestrated a plot to cause a conflict among the Avengers so that they would destroy themselves. After that point, Bucky is granted asylum in Wakanda, effectively going into rehab to break the Winter Soldier mind control. Fast forward to Infinity War, where the two are snapped out of existence by Thanos, and brought back 5 years later in Endgame, where they help defeat Thanos and his army. Captain America travels back in time to return the Infinity Stones and lives out his life, passing on his iconic shield to Falcon in the present day as an elderly man. And that about brings us to the starting point of this series. Apologies for the extended preamble, but this will all become relevant as we continue. This goes without saying, but heavy spoilers beyond this point. Skip ahead to this timestamp if you want to avoid them. You have been warned. The series begins about 6 months after the events of Avengers Endgame. Falcon is assisting the Air Force carrying out rescue missions. Episode 1 opens with an extended aerial action scene where Falcon rescues a hostage from Batroc the Leaper, a returning situational baddie from a previous film. As opening scenes go, this one was pretty solid. When a scene ends, this is where a trend starts to begin. Endless exposition. Look, I get it. World building is a thing, and a certain amount of exposition is needed to get the story going. But when you're overly reliant on it, it's a slap in the face to arguably the most vital rule of cinema. Show, don't tell. Anyway, Falcon's army pal Lieutenant Torres tells him about a terrorist group called the Flag Smashers, firmly of the belief that the world was better off in the 5-year period the population was cut in half. Pro-open borders, extorting and stealing resources for those inconvenienced after the snap was reversed. So we've established our antagonist for the series. Or so we think. Falcon returns to the US, where he decides to donate the Captain America shield to the Smithsonian Museum, believing he's not worthy of taking the mantle. Colonel Rhodes presses him on his decision, saying the world needs new heroes. I was looking forward to the idea of a nuanced character study of Falcon. Oh, how naive I was. Sam returns to his hometown in Louisiana where he is staying with his sister and nephews. His sister, Sarah, is struggling financially, risking bankruptcy attempting to sell the family boat, much to Sam's disapproval. Sarah is also mad at Sam for having been snapped out of existence for 5 years, causing her to fend for herself, as if Sam had any choice in the matter. Right. Sam attempts to take out a loan unsuccessfully, and this is where we learn that all his involvement with the Avengers was completely unpaid. I'm calling bullshit. For the amount of risk involved, he'd be entitled to some benefits at least. Not to mention the main benefactor was Tony Stark. Plus, his superhero attire is Stark Tech. They even referenced this in the show. Could he not flog off some of his old devices? What I'm trying to say is, there are ways around this. We cut to our other main character, Bucky Barnes, struggling to adjust to everyday life, reliving the events of being the Winter Soldier in his nightmares. He has been granted a pardon for his crimes, conditional on his attendance at court-mandated therapy sessions. In a far from subtle exchange of dialogue, we learn that Bucky is isolating himself from the world and is ignoring phone contact from Sam. I wonder if that's going to foreshadow anything. He has also inherited Steve's notebook, where he has written down the names of individuals he has wronged as the Winter Soldier, hoping to make amends. The embodiment of Bucky's redemption arc in this show comes in the form of an elderly Japanese man by the name of Nakajima, whom Bucky has befriended. Nakajima's son was murdered by the Winter Soldier as an innocent bystander in the event of an assassination mission, the father having never been told who or what killed him. The writing is so overt in how it goes about showing Bucky's guilt, to the point that you genuinely feel condescended to. Once again, breaking the show don't tell rule. Well, that's Bucky's goal for the series established. Thanks, show. Elsewhere in the middle of Europe, Torres goes incognito to track down the Flag Smashers, witnessing them rob a bank. When things go sideways, this is where we learn that they have super strength for some reason. Having sustained some injuries, Torres passes this information over to Falcon, telling him to keep it on the down low. Despite the fact that this group is a clear international threat? Sound advice, man. In the midst of all this, a breaking news announcement tells us that despite the fact Sam relinquished the shield, the world needs a new hero in these desperate times, and the new Captain America is unveiled, John Walker. Now, for the purposes of this review, I have rewatched this series several times, and upon each rewatch I realise more and more how manipulative the writing and framing of this show is. I have ultimately arrived at this conclusion. I really like John Walker as a character. However, I hate the way he is written for and how the show treats him. With an exceptional military background with 3 Medals of Honor, this guy is more than qualified for the rank of Captain America, the only disqualifier being he doesn't have super strength. He starts out as a humble, righteous man, but as the story carries on, the show attempts to paint him as an arrogant loose cannon. He and his best friend Lamar Hoskins have been appointed by the Global Repatriation Council to subdue any counter threats, namely the Flag Smashers. The leader of the Flag Smashers is a young girl called Karli Morgenthau. Again, the manipulative framing of the show tries to get you to believe that Karli is an altruistic individual, but her actions in this series make it almost impossible to sympathise with her cause. It makes it all the more frustrating when Falcon goes to his furthest lengths to defend her. Karli and her supporters are essentially anarcho-communists, travelling to GRC resource depots, looting the supplies and burning the compounds with people still in them. They believe that those who have reappeared after the blip, as it's called, are being favoured as opposed to those who remained on Earth during the 5-year period. Their ideology gets more and more difficult to get on board with, especially when it comes to the finale, but we'll get there. Sam and Bucky, after a rather unceremonious reunion, track the Flag Smashers down to Munich, where they are looting vaccines, and they end up battling the group. This is where they realise they have been dosed with a similar super soldier serum as Steve and Bucky. Walker and Lamar step in to lend a hand, but ultimately they all get defeated. Walker attempts to recruit Sam and Bucky to help him out with stopping the Flag Smashers, but our heroes are bitter about him claiming the Captain America mantle.
How dare you stand where he stood?
I found Sam and Bucky to be unbelievably petty in their resentment towards John Walker. Walker makes it clear that he's not trying to replace Steve, and values our heroes as allies. but they are far too hung up on him being an imposter in their eyes. Things only start to sour even more in terms of their dynamic, as Bucky and Sam effectively tell Walker to go do one. In an attempt to convince Sam to reconsider his position on becoming Captain America, Bucky takes him to Baltimore and introduces him to Isaiah Bradley, another fellow veteran who had been dosed with super serum. His backstory parallels that of Steve Rogers, with the drawback being that instead of being honoured and revered for his sacrifices for his country, Bradley was imprisoned and experimented on for 30 years, with his story being covered up by the US government. This is one of the show's retcons, as it recontextualises the Super Soldier saga in an attempt to insert a racial narrative. Don't get me wrong, the performance of Carl Lumley as Isaiah is incredible, but the social commentary is far too overt that it brings the story to a grinding halt. Not for the first time, and certainly not the last. Sam is shocked by this revelation and argues with Bucky after they get kicked out of the Bradley residence, to which we are greeted with probably the most contrived scene in the series, where a police car spontaneously appears and the officers racially profile Sam. They only realise a moment later that he is an Avenger and shift gears when they reveal that they're actually there to arrest Bucky for skipping his court-mandated therapy, which begs the question, why did he tag along with Sam in the first place if this was always a risk? Who wrote this? The therapist forces Sam and Bucky into a room where they basically regurgitate the script notes for their characters. Bucky is upset at Sam for giving up the shield, viewing it as a betrayal of Steve's wishes, outright saying it with no nuance or subtlety. They agree to team up to stop the Flag Smashers if it means they never have to cross paths again. Obviously this gets subverted along the way, but let's move on. Bucky is absolved of his transgressions thanks to Walker, but fuck that guy, am I right? Struggling for any leads, Bucky decides to visit an old friend / nemesis, Baron Zemo, currently imprisoned in Berlin. Much to Sam's disapproval, Bucky manages to break Zemo out of prison, keeping him on a short leash for obvious reasons. Unaware that Zemo is extremely wealthy, our heroes take advantage of his resources and take a trip on a private jet to the fictional city of Madripoor in East Asia, pitched to us to be a criminal paradise where all bets are off. Sam adopts the persona of a criminal that looks identical to him. How about that for convenience? And Bucky lets on to be Zemo's thug as the Winter Soldier once again. The logistics of Zemo's plan fall apart when you really start to think about it. Get Bucky to cause a scene in a shady bar where half the regulars are armed while the other half are filming on their phones, in the hopes of gaining an audience with the proprietor for info on super serum. This plan works, I guess, thanks to plot convenience. The footage of Bucky beating the shit out of people doesn't reach the US authorities, and the gang carry on with their mission. They learn from the shady bar owner that the scientist producing the serum is based in Madripoor, working for the mysterious power broker, described by Zemo as judge, jury and executioner of the city. Before the negotiations can continue, their cover is blown, a sniper assassinates the owner, and the murder is pinned on our protagonists. A bounty is placed on the killers, John Wick style, and our heroes narrowly avoid death by the city of mercenaries. We are then graced with the return of Sharon Carter, who grants our heroes refuge. Since her last appearance in Civil War, she had been branded an enemy of the state for stealing equipment for Captain Falcon, and has been laying low in Madripoor ever since. Well, I say laying low despite the fact that she has climbed a ladder, living a lavish lifestyle, curating an art gallery of stolen artwork. Bitter of the fact that she was abandoned by the Avengers, which I can completely understand by the way, they managed to get Bucky a pardon but not her. Falcon strikes a deal with her, promising to arrange a pardon for her in exchange for assistance on the super serum scientist. After a night of clubbing, remember those days? And after Zemo becomes a meme, Sharon leads them to the location of the scientist. In this exposition dump, we're told that the scientist had synthesized a refined version of the original serum, all of the vials having been stolen by the Flag Smashers. After being given a lead on Karli's whereabouts, Zemo shoots him dead, ensuring that no more super serum will be made. Suddenly, our heroes are ambushed by bounty hunters in the next obligatory action scene, and yet they come out of it unscathed. Marvel logic. Sharon stays behind, returning to her questionable actions in Madripoor, and the others track Karli to Riga, Latvia. Bucky is tracked down by Io of the Dora Milaje, who condemns him for smuggling Zemo out of prison, considering this to be a grave betrayal. We know that between movies, Bucky formed a bond with the Wakandans, was granted the title of the White Wolf, and was successfully rehabilitated from the Winter Soldier programming. And while they provide context in a flashback scene of Io helping him, it's surface level stuff. In an ideal world, I'd highly approve of a feature-length film showing Bucky's time in Wakanda and forming bonds with the locals. But hey, the Marvel roster is crowded enough as it is. Io gives Bucky an 8-hour time limit to get his affairs in order before she and her cohorts will take action and apprehend Zemo themselves. This is relayed onto Sam and Zemo, who step up their efforts to find Karli and Riga. After questioning the residents at a refugee camp, Zemo learns that a funeral is being held for the de facto mother figure of the Flag Smashers. As they make their way to their destination, they are intercepted by Walker and Lamar, Walker outraged at the release of Zemo. Walker has become more boisterous and unstable since the last time we saw him, a forced attempt in the writing to make him seem more unlikable, especially in the events that follow. Sam believes he can reason with Karli in her vulnerable state and visits her after the funeral. Things start off okay, Karli explaining her ideology, which in my most generous interpretation is based off of good intentions, but completely off the wall in execution. The negotiations fall apart, however, as Walker barges in and attempts to apprehend her. Karli scatters only to be ambushed by Zemo. Karli drops her reserves of super serum, which Zemo begins to start destroying. Walker, however, incapacitates him and notices that one serum vial wasn't smashed, which she secretly robs. I wonder where this is going to lead. Meanwhile, back in Zemo's apartment, Sam is pondering over the fact that maybe this misguided insane terrorist has a point. Things get taken up a notch when Walker and Lamar burst in, ready to arrest Zemo. Sam and Bucky do their best to talk him down until more unannounced visitors arrive, the Dora Milaje, also trying to arrest Zemo, marking their entrance with one of the women attempting to skewer Walker with a spear. I'm sorry, what? Walker tries to reason with Io, claiming the Dora Milaje don't have jurisdiction there, to which Io replies with, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be. Where do I even begin with that statement? I cast my mind back to Civil War, where the Sokovia Accords are written into law to regulate vigilante activity and avoid collateral damage, the most notable authority backing it being the late King of Wakanda prior to his assassination by Zemo. I understand that the reason you're here is for retribution, but this flies in the face of what your former monarch stood for. I must have missed a fine print under Article 12, Section C, where it says, superpowered individuals and vigilantes are only to act upon approval of the UN. The Dora Milaje? Nah, they're exempt. Marvel's own official social media accounts glorified this with a slay queen sentiment, but I'm just sat here thinking, you know, for an isolationist country who deems all outsiders to be colonisers, you're kinda acting imperialist yourselves. Things get taken up another notch as they attempt to kill Walker for the immoral transgression of patting Io on the shoulder. Ooh. Lamar gets attacked as well, for no reason at all. Bucky and Sam are looking at this like some kind of spectator sport, taunting Walker. They reluctantly step in to counter the attack, only to be overpowered. Even Bucky, the fabled Winter Soldier, is literally disarmed. They only stop fighting after they realise that during this insanity, Zemo used the opportunity to escape. Great job, guys. Who wrote this? Walker sulks at the fact that they weren't even super soldiers, nursing the blow to his ego, and he and Lamar leave. Karli makes her escape for the time being, with the power broker of Madripoor sending her threats after discovering of the destruction of the super serum on top of the death of the scientist. Karli's next play is to threaten Sam's sister in the hope of getting Sam's attention. Sam falls for this ruse and confronts Karli, while he has independently instructed Sharon to keep tabs on Walker through her satellite. Walker has tracked down the rest of the Flag Smashers and starts sweeping the building, but it doesn't take long before Lamar is abducted. He's on a manhunt to find his friend. Falcon and Bucky drop in, where they discover Walker took the serum! Oh my shock! The three of them face off against the Flag Smashers, who are armed with knives, but remember, they're fighting for a good cause, guys! One of the Flag Smashers has restrained Walker to allow Karli to fatally stab him, but is intercepted by Lamar, having freed himself. Karli retaliates by pummeling Lamar against a pillar, where he breaks his spine and dies. This is where time stands still, where Karli and her gang flee the scene like cowards, soon followed by Sam and Bucky. Walker desperately tries to revive his friend, and this is where he snaps, bursting out of the window down several stories in pursuit of Karli. He spots one of the other flag smashers giving chase and murders him in cold blood in open public view. Onlookers have filmed the incident on their phones, so we know that there are going to be repercussions. Even though a previously filmed violent incident led to no consequences whatsoever, but the show was working overtime to hammer it home that John Walker is a bad guy. And we need to insert some overt symbolism in there as well for the hell of it. Walker flees the scene to an abandoned warehouse, still struggling with what has just happened. Sam and Bucky track him down where they request for him to hand over the shield. What bothered me is that they showed little to no sympathy over the fact Lamar was murdered. They go straight to brass tacks and fight Walker to steal the shield off him. They end up reclaiming the shield, but at the cost of the destruction of Falcon's wings and leaving Walker with a broken arm. Walker stands trial for his actions in front of the GRC, where he is stripped of his title of Captain America and military rank. While he is coming to terms with this, he's introduced to Julia Louis-Dreyfus? This is Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, or Val for short, who according to Marvel comic lore is Nick Fury's lover. It's implied that she's attempting to assemble the Dark Avengers or the Thunderbolts as she leaves Walker with her blank business card. Helpful, I guess? Walker then proceeds to visit Lamar's parents, the only other people in this damn show who care about his death. Still pissed off how Bucky and Sam couldn't care less about it. They mourn together and Walker lies to the family that he killed the culprit. This only serves to motivate Walker to face off against Karli again and properly avenge Lamar. He then goes away to fashion a DIY version of the Captain America shield, forged partially from his medals of honour. Meanwhile, Sam travels back to visit Isaiah with the shield, only for Isaiah to go into more detail about how he feels America betrayed him. Sam appeals to him, trying to convince him to come out of hiding and tell a story, only for Isaiah to say that the US would never let a black man wear the stars and stripes. Does anyone want to tell him? Elsewhere, Zemo has come to the Sokovian Memorial to pay respects. Bucky has tracked him down and has led the Dora Milaje to apprehend him, gaining redemption in their eyes. The Dora Milaje explained they're bringing him to the raft. Sorry, but the way in which you conducted yourselves in Latvia implied that you were going to bring him back to Wakanda to atone for his sins of regicide, or certainly that's how I perceived it. I thought they were going to execute him. But after all this, no, we're going to be civilized again? Okay. Who wrote this? Back in Louisiana, Sam bonds with his family again with more boat repair. His nephews let slip that Sarah has reconsidered selling the boat, as apparently it would cost more to fix than to sell. Considering their family legacy and the hospitality they've given to their town, Sam and Sarah reach out to family, friends and neighbours to call in some favours, asking to help fix the boat. Why are they only thinking of this now? The whole town band together to help repair the boat, including Bucky, who has arrived to drop off a Wakandan briefcase to Sam, after calling in another favour with Io. 3 guesses what's inside. Bucky hangs around to offer help and becomes friendly with the locals, maybe a bit too friendly with Sarah. After fully repairing the boat, Sarah suddenly decides, no, we can't sell this family heirloom. But I thought that was the whole point, paying off your loans considering the alternative is becoming homeless. Who wrote this? Sam and Bucky practice throwing the shield and have a DMC, discussing Sam's conflict about becoming Captain America and Bucky's guilt about making amends to his victims. They bury the hatchet with each other, and what follows is a pretty cheesy training montage. Come on lads, this was considered cliché 20 years ago. I was almost expecting Rocky Balboa to crop up and join in. We cut to New York, where Karli and the remaining flag smashers finalise their plan to overthrow the GRC to stop them reinstituting borders. They're also joined by Batroc the Leaper, who was seemingly recruited by Sharon in Madripoor. Batroc equips them with guns and grenades, to the horror of Karli's cohorts, slowly realising Karli has gone off the deep end. Took you long enough, lads. Torres forwards the intel to Sam about the Flag Smasher's location, and Sam opens his Wakandan briefcase, Pulp Fiction style. Sam and Bucky rendezvous in New York, ready to stop the attack on the GRC. Sharon is also here, by the way, despite the fact that she is still a known fugitive. Who wrote this? She teams up with our heroes in their plan. Karli puts her plan into motion thanks to followers of hers stationed in the building, and attempts to kidnap and murder the GRC members. It's for a good cause, guys! Sam makes his dramatic entrance in his new Captain America outfit, fashioned out of vibranium. Be interesting to see how he pulls off stealth missions and that. Karli's cohorts have infiltrated the security team and have commandeered the helicopter and armoured trucks carrying the GRC members. Bucky and Sharon try to prevent their escape while Captain Falcon, that's what I'm calling him now, faces off one last time against Batroc. Fun fact, the vibranium Captain America shield isn't strong enough to withstand the velocity of a chair. Who wrote this? Sam overpowers Batroc and flies after the commandeered helicopter with the GRC hostages. His unbelievably intuitive heads-up display is able to tell him that one of the hostages has flight training, so he pulls a manoeuvre in which he pulls the hostage-taker pilot out of the cockpit, allowing the GRC member to take control of the chopper, bringing them to safety. It's a superhero series, come on. Bucky races after the armoured trucks, attempting to rescue the other hostages, rigged to explode from a gasoline fire. Karli and the rest of her team are ready to take off, but in comes Walker with a vengeance. Why is he still wearing the Captain America suit? I understand he forged his own shield, but surely he would have been forced to retire the suit. Karli tries to explain to Walker that she never wanted to hurt anyone whose lives didn't matter. Karli, honey, you have issues. And I'm saying this as you're about to fight against Walker. So they have it out with each other, while Bucky rescues the hostages from the first armoured truck before it explodes. Karli incapacitates Walker and tries to drive the second armoured truck off the top of a construction site before jumping out. Walker comes to pull the truck from the edge in what I guess is a redeeming act of heroism, before being foiled by Karli again. The truck is saved in the end by Captain Falcon, in an unbelievable feat of strength, considering he isn't dosed with super serum. He is applauded by passers-by in another cliché I thought had simmered down years ago. The conflict doesn't end there though, as Batroc reappears, firing smoke grenades into the construction site, causing everyone to scatter into the scaffoldings, turning into a game of cat and mouse. Sam, Bucky and Walker split up to try and catch Karli and co. Bucky and Walker lured the other Flag Smashers by sending an encrypted message on their app. Just go along with it, and the police round them up. Karli gets lured on her own by Sharon, and we learn that Sharon is in fact the power broker. No! Who could have foreseen this? Sharon expresses her disappointment in Karli for having betrayed her in Madripoor and tries to get her back on her team, only for Batroc to pop in, making Karli realise Sharon had set her up. Batroc tries to extort Sharon for more money, only for Sharon to shoot him dead, and for Karli to shoot Sharon. Sam appears after hearing the gunshots, seeing Batroc dead and Sharon wounded. He pleads with Karli to stop, only for her to lunge at him in a grand finale. Sam refuses to engage, contrary to Karli's unhinged screams for him to fight back. Sam holds his own against her until Karli gets the upper hand, but Sharon shoots her dead from afar. Sam cradles Karli in his arms and brings her body back down to the crime scene. Could they be any more on the nose with the Jesus imagery? The GRC council members thank Sam for his actions, and Sam lectures them, telling them to stop labelling people as thugs, refugees and terrorists. Pretty sure the Flag Smashers were terrorists, my dude. He continues to rip into the politicians by telling them, "You have to do better," in what the writers clearly thought was a powerful speech in theory, but it's pretty damn clear there weren't any amateur economists or political analysts in the writer's room, because it comes across as incredibly ignorant, especially in this universe post-blip. Sam's lecture is televised, and we are shown the likes of Torres and Isaiah becoming inspired by it. Sam leaves the politicians feeling ashamed and rejoins Bucky, proud of his friend for speaking out. Sharon is still nursing her wound, as Sam reassures her she'll get her pardon, completely unaware of her alter ego. The remaining Flag Smashers get carted away in an armoured truck, only for it to be blown up remotely by Zemo's butler. Jesus, giving Alfred Pennyworth a run for his money. Zemo relishes in satisfaction hearing of the news of their demise from his prison cell. Cut to the courtroom where Val de Fontaine and Walker's wife witness Walker get fitted into his US agent costume, planting the seeds for future movies. I get that it's somewhat poetic that this happens in the same place where Walker was demoted, but realistically, should they not be escorted out? We're nearly there. The next scene sees Bucky open up to Nakajima about murdering his son. Remember that subplot from episode 1? And he strikes off all the names of the people to make amends to in his notebook before returning the book to his therapist. Sam visits Isaiah one last time, who praises him for his actions as Captain America. Sam takes him and his grandson to the Smithsonian, where they have erected a golden statue of Isaiah and an exhibit immortalising him as a war hero. Really touching scene, but I'm sorry, I'm gonna be that guy. How the hell did they arrange this so quickly? It couldn't have been any longer than a couple of days since the final battle. Also, Isaiah had forged documents pronouncing him as dead. Is he to remain in hiding, or he's now available to the public? Finally, we close on a party being thrown back in Louisiana, where Sam, Bucky, Sarah and all the locals are enjoying themselves. But I just picture in a deleted scene that a real estate agent arrives to claim the house because they never sold the damn boat. God damn it, who wrote this? Malcolm Spellman, now commissioned to write a fourth Captain America film. Considering the standards shown to us in this series, we're in for a treat. The MCU is a really promising future. Also, in an end credit sequence, we see Sharon getting pardoned and getting her old position back, only for her to phone an associate soon after, confirming she now has access to government secrets and prototype weapons, when she is in clear earshot of everyone coming in and out of the building. You could have waited till you were a couple of 100 feet further away, for fuck's sake. Also, to mark the transitions of our two main characters, the final title graphic has changed from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Wow. Wow, Bucky got shafted. I thought the whole point was that he had moved on from that point in his life. He's the White Wolf now, would you not at least change it to that? Whatever. As I said in the beginning, I was looking forward to this show. Sam and Bucky in the previous films were standout characters to me. Unfortunately, the writing overall did not serve them justice. It was good to see Sam become fully realised as Captain America, but apart from that, the writing is just an unstructured mess. If you really think about it, what has changed between the end of Endgame and the end of the series? It was just a roller coaster ride in between Sam being handed the shield and coming to terms with his new moniker. The Flag Smashers portion of the show had little significance to me outside of the show's obstacle. I was pulling my hair out at the lengths the show was going to, trying to paint them as relatable, especially Karli. The actress Erin Kellyman, I'm sorry to say this, but her delivery was painfully subpar. The tone of this show was a major issue as well. I know that at this stage it's commonplace for current Marvel movies and shows to have tonal whiplash between serious moments and jokey quips, but considering how seriously this show took itself, it became extra jarring in the moments where they tried to insert levity between the two leads. The treatment of John Walker in this series was appalling. Once again, tonal whiplash. Starts out as an American hero, constantly shat on for not being Steve Rogers, manipulative writing and framing to make you hate him, with a haphazard redemption arc shoehorned in at the end. That is incompetent. Also, Lamar Hoskins deserved better. I wanted to see more of him, rather than him serving as a plot device. You could really tell that the writing formula here was, here are our political talking points, and now let's put some semblance of a story around it. I shouldn't be surprised given today's standards, but good God, there's such a thing as nuance. I'm fine with political and social commentary written into stories, as long as it's integrated well, but you get a concussion from how hard you're beaten over the head with this messaging. The timing of the show's release played well into the favour of the writers as well, considering the amplified racial tensions of certain events in the previous year. But, call me crazy, I don't consider the race, gender or sexuality of a character to be a sole focus. I try to look beyond that. If I'm wrong for thinking like that, leave a comment below on your take. I'm happy to have a discussion. In conclusion, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was very disappointing for me. I always viewed superhero content as a form of escapism, but the heavy-handed commentary present here drove a wedge in that. I'm going to give this series 1.5 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching this video. Once again, leave a comment below to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more from me. Until next time, I've been GallifreyanAvenger. See you next time.